Good morning, everyone. Let's talk about the three topics we have prepared, which are the Impressionism, Post-Impressionism, and Fauvism. So we are the group of the palette, and I am Lance Richard Arciballo, together with Francis Dale Abalos, John Kenneth Borcoma, Aliyah K. Villaferte, Aliza Lay Villanera, and Elijah Yabut as your presenters. Let's talk about Impressionism. So, Impressionism is a 19th century art movement that originates in France. It focuses on capturing the fleeting impression of a moment, particularly the effects of natural light and atmosphere. It is through techniques like visual brushstrokes and blended colors and open composition. So, for a small trivia, we have that the name Impressionism came from a critical review of Claude Monet's artwork or painting in 1872, which was named Impression Sunrise. So the critic used the word impression to mock or ridicule the painting's unfinished appearance. But then the artists, they have adopted on it. So for Impressionism, we have the key characteristics, which is the visible brushstrokes, emphasis on light, open composition, everyday subject matter, and painting outdoors or in plein air. And we have the Impressionists. So the Impressionists are Claude Monet, Pierre-Auguste Renoir, Edward Manet, and Camille Pissarro.
Claude Monet was a French Impressionist painter, known for capturing light and atmosphere through rapid brushstrokes and vibrant colors. In 1872, his work Sunrise gave the Impressionist movement its name. Monet spent much of his life in Giverny, where his garden inspired his famous Water Lilies series. He has many artworks, over 2,500, but let's focus on his artworks that applies Impressionism. In 1872, Claude Monet painted Impression Sunrise in his hometown of Le Havre, France. This piece of his artwork is a foundation of the Impressionist movement. In this artwork, he focuses in the atmosphere rather than the exact form. Today, Impression Sunrise is housed in the Musée Marmottan Monet, Paris, France. Its size is 48 by 63 cm. Beginning in the late 1890s and continuing until his death in 1926, Claude Monet dedicated himself to painting. His water garden in Giverny, Monet produced more than 250 canvases, each exploring the light, colors, and reflections. The effects is immersive and sensory. Today, some of the examples of water lilies are housed in Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, where one version's 101 by 20 cm. Let's proceed to the next artist, Pierre-Auguste Renoir. Pierre-Auguste Renoir was born on February 25, 1841, and died on December 3, 1919. He began his career as a porcelain painter and continued studies in Paris, where he refined his artistic training. Renoir became one of the leading Impressionist painters. He also met Claude Monet and Alfred Sisley that leads on working together. In 1881, Pierre-Auguste Renoir painted Two Sisters, also known as On the Terrace. Renoir used bright luminous colors and loose, fluid brushstrokes, emphasizing the play of light on their faces, clothing, and the surroundings, which is typically his Impressionist style. Today, the painting is housed in the Art Institute of Chicago, United States, and measures 100.4 by 80.9 cm. Painted in 1876, Pierre-Auguste Renoir, Baljo Mula de la Galette, captures a lively afternoon dance scene. The painting shows Parisian everyday life. This artwork exemplifies this Impressionist style, combining vibrant color with social observation. Today, the painting is housed in Musée d'Orsay, Paris, France, and measures 131 by 175 cm.
Alright, so we proceed on another set of artists. First up, we got Edward Manet. This dude was super savage back in the day. He is a French modernist painter, often considered a bridge between realism and impressionism. Kilala rin siya sa mga controversial works niya. So, Manet's painting Olympia is like iconic. But it caused so much drama back then because it wasn't some fake, perfect goddess. It was a real woman looking right at the camera like, yeah, what's up? Why do you think people were so pressed about it? Was it too real? Let us know in the comments. Monet also painted a bar at Follies Berzer. It's a painting of a bar and it's kinda vibey, di ba? As you can see, there's a barmaid behind the counter with champagne bottles, flowers, and fruit. The large mirror behind her reflects the bustling crowd and the male customer, but the reflection is slightly disorienting, raising question about perspective and reality. It's trivia time. Did you know that Monet's dad wanted him to be a lawyer, but Monet was like, nah, art is my calling. Next up, we have Camille Pissarro. He was like the chill grandpa of Impressionism. He is a Danish-French Impressionist and neo-Impressionist painter, known as the father of Impressionism. He mentored artists like Cezanne, Gauguin, and even Van Gogh. Pissarro painted a ton of cityscapes. One of his famous series is of Boulevard Montmartre in 1897. From a series where Pissarro painted the same street at different times of day and in different weather, it also shows Paris' modernization during the late 19th century. Next is Late Afternoon in Our Meadow. It depicts a scene in the village of Eragny, north of Paris, where Pissarro settled with his family in 1884. He lived there for the rest of his life and painted several views of this meadow, which was planted with small trees, still surrounded by their protective cages.
Now let's proceed on Post-Impressionism. So Post-Impressionism was a broad-fired French art movement from the late 19th century that reacted against the limitation of Impressionism by favoring more abstract qualities and symbolic content over the naturalistic depiction of light and color. So the Post-Impressionists reacted against the naturalism of the Impressionists to explore color, line, and form, and the emotional response of the artist. It is to concern which led to the development of Expressionism. So here are the key characteristics of Post-Impressionism. We have the subjective expression, bold and naturalistic color, empathic brushwork and form, geometric forms, and symbolic content. So there are five post-impressionists. We have Vincent van Gogh, Paul Cézanne, Paul Gauguin, Georges Seurat, and Émile Bernard.
For the first post-impressionism artist I'm gonna mention in this report is the most famous, the most remarkable, and the most amazing artist, in my opinion, in the whole wide world, is Vincent van Gogh, or also pronounced as Vincent van Gogh. But either way, it's both correct. Van Gogh was born on March 30, 1853 in the Netherlands. He grew up in a religious family, and at first, he didn't even plan to be an artist. So before painting, he worked as an art dealer and even tried being a teacher and a preacher, but eventually he found his passion in painting. He was super hardworking. He made over 2,000 artworks in just 10 years. One of his most famous is Star Night, which guys, a lot of people recognize today. Van Gogh also struggled a lot with his mental health. He had breakdowns, and at one point, he even cut off part of his own ear during a fight with his friend, Paul Gauguin. You will know him later. He spent time in hospitals, but he still kept on painting. Sadly, he died, young, on July 29, 1890, at only 37 years old. Did you know at that time he wasn't even famous? But today, his art is seen as some of the most important things in the world. Imagine dying young and you didn't even know you will become famous. That's sad. Moving on, this is Van Gogh's artwork called The Sunflowers. It was painted in 1888 in Arles, France. He actually made a whole series of sunflower paintings to decorate the room for his friend Paul Gauguin. The brushwork is thick with heavy paint layers called impasto, which makes the flower look so texturous and alive. Today, one of the most famous versions is displayed in the National Gallery in London. Look how pretty. Okay, so the next artwork this is called The Sower, painted in the same year, 1888. Van Gogh was inspired by farmers he saw in Arles, and it also connects to a biblical theme about sowing seeds. His style here is very bold, with strong outlines and bright contrasting colors. You can really feel the movement of the figure. So yeah, this artwork is now kept in Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam. The next post-impressionism artist he is the one and only Paul Cézanne. He was born on January 19, 1839 in Aix-en-Provence, France. Unlike Van Gogh, he actually came from a pretty wealthy family. At first, his father wanted him to be a lawyer, so Cézanne studied law. Oh, come on. But his real passion was painting, so he eventually followed that path instead. Good for him. He became really important in art history, and is even called the father of modern art. Wow! Because his style influenced a lot of later artists like Picasso. Cézanne is best known for his still life paintings with fruit, his landscape, and portraits. He used colors and shapes in a very unique way that was different from other painters at the time. Sadly, he passed away on October 22, 1906 at the age of 67. So today, his works are seen as a huge step toward modern art. Wow! This is Paul Cézanne's The Card Players, painted in 1890s. He's actually part of a series of 5 different paintings showing peasants playing cards. Unlike Van Gogh, you can see that unlike Van Gogh's expressive strokes, Cézanne's brushwork was very controlled and structured, focusing on shapes and balance. Different versions of this paintings are now found in famous museums like the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, in the Met, New York, and the Barnes Foundation in Philadelphia. And next, what the hell? Okay, next. This one is the Basket of Apples, painted in 1893. So yeah, you can see that Cézanne loved doing still lifes, but what makes this special is how he played with perspective. Look, the table looks tilted, and the basket almost seemed to spill over. His brushwork is thick but organized and treated objects almost like geometric shape. This painting is now displayed at the Art Institute of Chicago. Next artist, please.
Paul Gauguin was a French post-impressionist painter, printmaker, and sculptor, known for his bold use of color, simplified forms, and symbolic dreamlike imagery. Gauguin didn't start out as an artist. He worked as a stockbroker and only began painting seriously in his 30s. He was born on June 7, 1848 in Paris, France, and passed away on May 8, 1903 in Otonia, Marquesas Islands. When Will You Marry was made in 1892 by Paul Gauguin. The size of the painting is 101 by 77 cm. The title When Will You Marry refers to the social pressures on the young Tahitian woman to marry, though Gauguin frames it through his own outsider's perspective. The painting depicts two Tahitian women sitting in a lush landscape. The one in the foreground wears a pink dress, while the one behind her wears traditional clothing and a white flower in her hair, which is a symbol of courtship. The painting was long held by the Rudolf Steichelen Family Trust in Switzerland and displayed in the Kunstmuseum Basel, but in 2015 it was reportedly sold to a private collector in Qatar for around 210 to 300 million USD, making it at the time the most expensive painting ever sold. Its exact location currently is private. The Yellow Christ was made in 1889 by Paul Gauguin, the size being 92.1 by 73. The painting depicts the crucifixion of Christ, but in a way unlike traditional religious art. Christ is shown bright yellow, nailed to a wooden cross in the Breton countryside. The painting was painted in Pont-Aven, Brittany, during a period when Gauguin was fascinated by the region's rural traditions and deep Catholic faith. It is currently located in Albright Knox Art Gallery, Buffalo, New York.
Georges Pierre Seurat was a French post-impressionist painter born on December 2, 1859 in Paris. He studied at the École des Beaux-Arts and later became interested in color, light, and science. In 1880s, he developed pointillism, a technique using tiny dots of color that blend in the viewer's eye. Unlike other impressionists, Seurat's focus on precision and structure. His innovative style greatly influenced modern art. Some of his artworks are A Sunday Afternoon on the La Grande Jatte, painted in 1884 using pointillism. This large painting, about 70 by 104 centimeters, shows Parisian enjoying leisure by the River Seine. It is considered a landmark of modern art, symbolizing both relaxation and Seurat's scientific approach to color. Today, it is displayed at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Another work is Bathers at Asnières, made in 1884. This oil on canvas measuring 201 by 300 centimeters depicts working class men relaxing by Seine, opposite the setting of La Grande Jatte. It demonstrates Seurat's early experiments with light, shadow, and color theory. The painting is currently located in the National Gallery, London. Emile Bernard was a French painter born in 1868 and died on April 16, 1941 in Paris. He is known for founding Cloisonnism, a style using bold colors outlined by dark contours. Bernard was friends with artists like Van Gogh, Gauguin, Redon, and Cézanne. Besides painting, he made sculptures, woodcuts, furnitures, tapestries, wrote poetry, and studied philosophy. He also lived in Italy and Egypt before returning to France, later publishing letters with these artists that became key to modern art history. Some of Emile Bernard's artwork include self-portrait with portrait of Paul Gauguin created in 1888. This oil on canvas measures about 61 by 45 centimeters. It shows Bernard's self-image beside Gauguin, representing their artistic friendship and exchange of ideas. Today, it is displayed at the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam. Another work is Bread and Woman at a Wall, painted in 1892. This is an oil on cardboard mounted on canvas with a size of about 83 by 116 centimeters. It portrays women in traditional Breton clothing, emphasizing Bernard's connection to the Pont-Aven school and his travels with Paul Gauguin. This painting is now housed in the Indianapolis Museum of Art.
Now let's talk about the last topic of our discussion. We have the Fauvism. Fauvism was a short-lived avant-garde art movement in early 20th century in France. It is characterized by the use of intense, non-naturalistic colors and bold, fierce brushwork. So the term Fauvism, meaning wild beasts, in French, was coined by a critic after their 1905 exhibition describing their expressive and tame style. The movement emphasized emotional expression and painterly qualities over realism, laying groundwork for later abstract art. So the key characteristics for Fauvism is the bold and naturalistic color, same as the Post-Impressionism, but here we have the fierce brushwork, emphasis on color and form, spontaneous and subjective approach. So we have two Fauves or Fauvists. So we have the Henri Matisse and Andre Dre.
Okay, we're gonna talk about Henri Matisse and André Derain. First, let's start with Henri Matisse. Henri Matisse is a French painter, printmaker, sculptor, and one of the most influential artists of the 20th century, best known as the founder and leader of Fauvism. He originally studied law, but after an illness in his early 20s, he discovered painting and decided to pursue art full-time. He was born in December 31, 1869 in Le Cateau, Cambrésis, northern France, and died in November 3, 1954 in Nice, France. Woman with a Hat. Woman with a Hat was painted by Henri Matisse in 1905 and was first exhibited at the Salon d'Automne in Paris the same year. Today, the painting is housed in San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, donated by the Stein family, who were early supporters of Matisse. The painting depicts a woman who is wearing a Parisian hat. The mix of colors and brushworks turns the painting into an abstract, making the simple description of a woman with a hat more expressive. The woman with a hat from the painting is Emile Matisse. She is Henri Matisse's wife, who is shown sitting in a formal pose. Next, we have Le Bonheur de Vivre. Le Bonheur de Vivre, which means joy of life, was painted by Henri Matisse in 1905 to 1906. Le Bonheur de Vivre is an Arcadian landscape filled with nude figures who dance, play music, and relax in nature. With nude figures that dance, play instruments, decline, and embrace in harmony with nature. The colors are applied in a way that makes the painting feel like it has a dreamlike effect. Le Bonheur de Vivre is currently housed at the Barnes Foundation in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Next, we have André Derain. André Derain was a French painter, sculptor, and co-founder of Fauvism alongside Henri Matisse. He grew up near the Seine River and developed an early interest in painting. He later studied art formally in Paris, where he met fellow artists who shaped his career. He was born June 10, 1880 in Chateau near Paris, France, and then died September 8, 1954 in Garches, France. Mountains at Collioure. Mountains at Collioure was painted during the summer of 1905 when Derain joined Matisse in Collioure, a fishing village in the south of France. This period was a turning point in Derain's career and in the birth of Fauvism. The current location of Mountains at Collioure is currently housed in the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. Normally, you'd expect mountains to be filled with a lot of green colors because of the trees, right? But here you can see that the trees are color blue and the mountains are filled with red. The colors in the painting doesn't really reflect how the mountains or the sea actually look, but instead it creates a sense of emotion. Charing Cross Bridge. In 1906, Derain's art dealer Ambroise Vollard sent André Derain to London to paint cityscapes. The painting is currently in the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. like the other art Derain made. The painting depicts the London Bridge while the sun seems to be setting. The painting gives a sense of warmth with the thick red and green contrast. If you compare the painting into the real-life version, you can see that there are a lot of differences here. Normally, in the real world, it's just normal stone color, which is just gray. In the real-life version, it's more gloomy, if I should say. The painting version of Charing Cross Bridge is more colorful, it has more emotion, and it feels more lively and less gloomy than the real-life version.
That sums up our presentation. I hope that is now clear to all of you guys the differences between the three, which are the Impressionism, Post Impressionism, and Fauvism. That's all, guys. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned something new for today. Thank you so much, and goodbye.